Everybody, everybody, yeah. What's going on, everybody? Let me see. Let me see here. Okay. All right. Let's see who's coming in the room here. Don't worry. We're gonna start. One day, by the way, if you're watching these on playback, I will go through these and edit these. But right now, I like the kind of like grassroots feel of these. So, don't worry. These will be edited eventually, right? So let me see. I'm just doing all the setups here. Chat filter. Okay, show every message. Yep, that's fine. I don't mind that. Share, I already have shared. Okay, so I want to talk to you, amazing people, today about what it takes to manifest, right? So we absolutely are addicted to rites of passage in our culture, right? Now, thank you, by the way. I do see people coming in. We are absolutely addicted to rites of passage in our culture. Okay, but what does that mean? Rites of passage, remember like what rites of passage were? Okay, so even in, let's say, the kind of birth or origin story of Rome, like the actual Rome, right, the actual city of Rome, right, you have this romanticized story of Romulus and Remus and brothers, and they're separated and they have to go out and find a wolf and kill it and all of this kind of stuff. And so, in the ancient world, these rites of passage were proof. They were proof of what? They're proof that at least for boys, that they were capable of becoming men, right? And if they died, then they weren't, right? They were kind of screwed. And so rites of passage were always about proving yourself. Rites of passage were always not just proving yourself to yourself. You were always proving yourself to a community, right? And so rites of passage were two things at once. Proof to yourself that, yes, I am capable. And in psychology, that's called self-efficacy. Two, it was also to prove to those outside in this world, okay, that, hey, I'm capable of doing something, all right? And this is very important when we talk about what it takes to manifest, right? Because you kind of have to think about manifestation as, yes, it is a process of creation, but it's also a process of proving, right? So Neville says that, manifestation is better understood as a classroom. But why do you go to school? What, to prove that you can regurgitate information? Yes, that is part of it, because that's how our current understanding of what it means to be educated means, which is really a bunch of BS, to be honest with you. Because our understanding of being educated or learning or growing is extremely one-sided. It's very linear, right? It's like, well, if I go to school and I can regurgitate to you the Pythagorean theorem because I memorized a squared plus b squared equals c squared, then I must know something. Right? And in fact, most of the time, by the way, if you notice, how we judge whether somebody has authority today is based upon what? Whether they can regurgitate information, right? So if I can sit to you every day and sit with you and regurgitate Wikipedia, and you wouldn't know it was Wikipedia, you would think I was the smartest dude who ever lived, right? And so the whole idea, though, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because when you're in manifestation, it is education, but education is growth. Education isn't regurgitating old information, right? Education is practicing what you're giving. And a lot of our school systems today, like American, for example, are not built on that. So then we grow up and we learn and we normalize and we're like, hey, I'm learning and I'm growing. Not really. Most people aren't learning or growing because they're regurgitating old information. And this is important for manifestation, because if you're new to my channel, you know that I always go through a back door, right? I'm exploring this concept, but I'm exploring it through sociology or through psychology or through behavioral science, right? Or even neuroscience. Because those are things in which explain who we are from the human side, right? We know that we're divine, or hopefully you do, and if not, then that's what you go to coaching for, to wake up, right? But basically, when you're trying to grasp what manifestation is and what it's not, and why it is the way it is, and how the law works within manifestation, and what the law is, and how we work in relationship to the law, and so on and so forth, right? Well, then we're met with this idea of, well, what does it mean to be educated? What does it mean to grow? What does it mean to grow in this, right? So not yet, but you know what? I typically am on LSD. No, I'm not. So basically, when we're trying to fully understand our place in this manifestation spectrum, if we come at manifestation as I need to earn it, then guess what? You've created a life where you earn, and that you're only going to earn. So, and we talked about this, I think, yesterday or the day before yesterday, how our society, right, is all predicated or built upon this idea of earning, right? The more you accumulate, the more you earn, the more you do, the more value you have, the more value that you bring to the table, right? So we look at people like Elon Musk, and I'm using Western examples, but you can use these examples in your own country, right? And so these people that we typically think are authorities in whatever industry that they're in aren't the same as people who've actually experienced. Hey, Abhishek, how you doing? Welcome. How's everybody's days, by the way? What are you doing today? Today's Thursday, right? How's your Thursday? Let me know what you're doing today. And so when we're trying to understand manifestation, and us as manifestation, like manifestors, right? And we're trying to grasp that, the best thing that we can do, okay, is really, really accept the fact that we have been taught a certain way to be in this world, right? In this stage world, okay? But that way of being is almost against the idea of us actually really grasping the depth of who we are, right? Because the more that we accumulate things, the more that we hide, the more that we accept labels. Oh, I have this. Oh, I have that. Oh, I have this big house. Oh, I have this. There's nothing wrong with those things. In fact, I'm for those things. I'm for you manifesting those things in your life, right? But the reality is that we create manifestation as a rite of passage. Hence why when I just started talking about manifestation as a rite of passage, right? And we think, well, I need to earn it, or that the more knowledge I accumulate, meaning the more that you read about the work of Neville Goddard, or the more work that you read from Abraham Hicks, or the more work that you get from Mind Valley, or whatever it is, that you're like, I'm an authority on this piece of information, right? That's not. And because, and this is very key, by the way, this is going to lead to my first point about what it takes to actually manifest, okay, is, you know, if you look at manifestation as, I know all of the books, I know all of the different ways, I know where it goes to, I know where it originated, I know how many techniques are out there, I know who's the best manifester. Is it Bashar? Is it Abraham Hicks? Is it, you know, is it Neville Goddard? Is it Joseph Murphy? Is it Emmett Fox? Is it, right? And we start accumulating this kind of like celebrity around manifestation. None of these people, if they were really truly heartfelt about what they did, would care about whether you turn them into a celebrity or not, right? Because manifestation is not about celebrity. It's just not, right? And by the way, if you're here and you're new, welcome, welcome, welcome. Make sure you hit that like button, because this actually helps the algorithm. So I know that there are people in this room right now. You may not be responding, but let me know how your day is if you feel so inclined, and what you plan to do today. And so when you're trying, again, to grasp the depth of who you are, and the depth of what it means to manifest and create things in your world, okay? I really, really want you to get to the heartbeat of accepting the fact that manifestation is not about a rite of passage. Manifestation is not about earning things. Manifestation is pretty much counter to everything you might have been taught in this world, even including your own childhood, right? Because a lot of people do grow up in households where they're like, oh, you have to earn my love, or go do this chore and then I'll love you more, or you got to get a job at 16. Those things aren't wrong. It's the heartbeat behind them that we get taught and we normalize, and like, oh my gosh, I've got to earn this, and now I got to go earn that, and I got to go earn this. Yes, you've got to do stuff in this world. Like Neville says, right? In this world of Caesar, there are certain things. You got to pay bills, you got to go to work, all of these kinds of things, right? Now, you can manifest that to not be true. I believe that. Neville even shares stories about people who've done that, right? And so, actually, quite a few. And there was somebody on here the other day that was actually asking about that, right? Well, I have all this money, I don't know what to do with it, and I just want to not do anything, right? And just sit on this kind of like mound of money, which is, again, a great desire to have. But most of us are operating on this premise that because we've been taught as children that we should earn our way, or that if you don't, that you're not working, or that something, right? So we have all of these collective beliefs that we've normalized. The problem is that when you embrace those beliefs, right? When you think that those are the only way in which to do things, then those become your rite of passage. Hence why I started talking about rite of passage, right? And so another way of saying this is that any belief that you accept is a hoop that you have to jump through before the thing shows up in your life, right? And so when you accept anything, whether it's your parents that have given it to you, your social groups, your church groups, your whatever it is, right? Gender-based roles in society, it doesn't matter what it is. Once you accept that as true, what you're saying to yourself is, I'm not worth anything until I actually jump through that hoop, right? And so, yet there's loads of examples and people in this world that don't fit those examples, that have created their own hoop, so to speak, right? And so the problem also with that is that creates your identity. So you create a portion of yourself to not only feel like you're doing something right, but also to feel like you're doing something that makes you feel whole and complete. So then guess what? You're gonna live half of your life, if not more, trying to jump through the hoops that someone else gave you. And then you're gonna define that as a form of happiness. And then maybe in your 50s, 60s, whatever it is, you're gonna be like, I don't know what I was doing, right? Because I've been living someone else's life. And so when you're trying to understand how manifestation and creation thinking works, you have to fully grasp that if you are living someone else's life, you're going to live a life of resentment, and you're going to go live a life of limitation and disempowerment, but you're going to justify it, right? And so, hey X, how you doing? And so welcome everybody. And so when you are trying to understand that manifestation is not about a rite of passage. You don't have to earn it, you don't have to do it, but that you live in a society and in a world, right? You live in a society, right? Like the Joker said, which is just a huge sarcastic statement about how everything is contrived. But if you live through the contrivance, right, then you're gonna be constantly manifesting through the contrivance. You're gonna be manifesting through the rules. And the system is always gonna be defining you rather than the other way around. Okay, and so there is an element that I think when people read the work of Neville Goddard, they focus so much on the mystical and the spiritual that they forget he was so practical, right? And so, I've heard many people who don't believe in the law, so to speak, but they're still operating by the law, right? Because the law operates. Does that make sense? Right? And so, thank you. I definitely consider myself a Rastafarian wizard. So I'm just kidding. But welcome, the Fat Muppet as well, and X and Abhishek and Troll. So again, what we've been talking about, by the way, is we've been talking about rites of passage and how society trains us to get used to rites of passage. So then our thinking is very rites of passage, meaning I have to earn my manifestation. I have to do something. So then most people are really struggling because they think it's a rite of passage. Like I have to earn it, right? And so that's the first thing that I really, really want to get rid of for everybody, which should free you up. Because if you think I have to earn it, or I have to do this many things, or I have to do this many affirmations, or I have to do this many beliefs, or I have to do this many things, then what you're doing is you're following not manifestation. You're not following the law, because the law is based upon your own beliefs. That's it. Not your emotions, not your thoughts, your beliefs, right? Yes, you can use thoughts and emotions to shape. We've talked about this, okay? But when you're trying to grasp like the root causes of what is manifestation and why you manifest, right? The first thing you want to get rid of is you don't earn anything, right? Because then you've created a belief system. So then by the way, and here's the thing, people don't really take this on board because they're linear about it, right? You forget that you're manifesting everything in your life, relationships, and visible things like thoughts and all this kind of stuff, right? Meaning the things that you can't physically see. And so you don't need anything. This is what I'm saying, right? Fat Muppet, like you don't need anything. There is no, like, this isn't some ancient culture like I shared at the beginning of this video about Rome, and you have Romulus and you know, like the ancient origins of Rome, and it was all built in Spartan kind of like theory about like, this is what a man is and you got to go and do this and all this kind of stuff, right? Or you're going to die. Right? Or even the ancient Mayan cultures who had like similar rites of passage and, you know, would abandon kids out in the middle of nowhere. And right, this is not about that. It is not about earning at all whatsoever. There's never an earning involved in this, right? In fact, Neville says the opposite. You actually come at this, right? You actually come at this as if you deserve this all the time. So he actually uses two different ideas. One is invincibility. And the other one is, and I shared this the other day, the ace up your sleeve. It's one of my like favorite ideas of his, right? You come at this, like, for example, if you're trying to manifest health, imagine that you have invincible health. Like, imagine, but that as an like emotion, okay? How would you feel about your health? Like, you wouldn't question it because you have invincible health. Same with your finances, same with the love that you desire, or like whatever it is. And remember, you're not seeking it out. You never seek it out in the sense that, yes, like the spiritual is that, yes, seek the kingdom and you will find it, right? That's always in. You're seeking within to do that. You never seek it without. Hence why you have people who have like multiple wives and husbands and all this kind of stuff, because they're still seeking in the other person what they themselves are actually desiring, right? Does that make sense? Yes. So I mean, so you are always manifesting, but it's the way that you're manifesting that actually will determine how you manifest. The way will determine how, right? So let me just say it another way. The why determines your how. That's really, really what you want to get to the root of. Okay. What is the driving factors behind why you are compelled to control and guide the process of manifesting? That may be better said, right? And so, again, the why always determines the how. So let me just say it yet another way. The emotion determines the creation. Somebody can even put that down if you want, write it down for other people that are coming in, because I'll probably keep going for about half an hour. Like, your emotions determine what is created. So another way of saying that, let's go back to what I just said. The why will always determine the how. Are you with me? So, right? And so my challenge to you is that if your whys are all muddled up in this world and the way in which you've been taught as a child, and yes, get rid of your deprogramming, right? That is completely right, Muppet, right? I'm gonna actually pin that, okay? So, what you need to do is to figure out what that means for you, because everybody's programming is different. Everybody's childhood is different, right? And you know, when you're looking at this as a rite of passage, you remove other powerful things, right? So let's talk about the word belief, okay? So I'm gonna actually give you two different definitions. Well, all right, how about this? They're gonna sound different. To me, they're absolutely related, right? But I'm a word origin guy. So I've been studying biblical languages for about 17 years, something like that. And I've taught like all kinds of stuff in like philosophy and lectured at universities and all this kind of stuff, right? Now, when I say that, I'm not just talking about the Western Christian understanding of the Bible. I'm talking about the esoteric, right? And I have loads of books similar to what Neville's had. When I say similar, I mean the exact ones that he, not the physical exact ones. I got it, right? But I'm just saying ones that he himself read. And a lot of them talk about the biblical imagery from the esoteric understanding. And so it is the same with faith or belief, which they are tied. They are tied together. There is not a separation in the way in which we understand them. But it comes from an ancient word that actually goes back to even pre-biblical times, which is like Sumeria, Egypt. In fact, actually the Egyptians used the same exact, of course they used like way less letters. But it's the word emunya, right? E-M-U-N-A-H, okay? And I like to do this because you guys can just fact check me. I don't really care if you do that. But it's actually a very beautiful word, because today belief and faith are so abstract. It's like, I don't know what that means. What does that mean to believe in my manifestation? What does that mean to have faith in it, right? So, and Neville kind of talks about this, but he never talks about the word itself. He just says you need faith, you need belief, you need all of this kind of stuff, right? And so to get to the root of this is very beautiful. And so, this is part one of what I'm trying to get you to understand. What do you need? What does it take to manifest? And that's what I mean. Like, so, X, you're correct in that we're always manifesting. But now I'm trying to say, how do we become intentional with it? How do we control it? And so Neville talks about belief and faith, right? And I absolutely hate those words because they've been hijacked by religious groups, because they've been hijacked by, over spiritual higher, people on their high horse. Well, you have to have enough faith. BS, right? So it isn't about enough. It's about what. Okay, so the word immunia, it's a beautiful word. It means artisan, creator, or practitioner. This is absolutely amazing. Okay, so one of the things that Neville said many, many different times, many different ways, and this is the one thing I still have yet to see many people write about or even talk about, is that this is something, and he says it many different ways, but I had heard this yesterday again from him, and he said, this is a skill that must be practiced, right? This is not something that you just get good at overnight, right? And so this is something that I really want you to hear. I really, really need you to hear. This is not about earning, because skill building and like earning are completely different. To me, they're actually opposites, okay? Skill building is growth. Earning is, I want to see if I can jump through these hoops, right? That's not skill building. You're simply just taking a basic amount of knowledge and saying, can I find a faster way to jump through the hoops, right? And you don't learn. You don't grow. This is why I don't believe in earning anything, right? And I mean, Neville was very much against that, meaning he said a different way. He's like, you don't need to ask for permission, which means you don't need to earn it. You don't need to ask for somebody, hey, how can I get it this way? How can I get it that way, right? Yeah, very good. And so when you look up the word belief or faith, and he says you gotta have faith. I mean, let's be honest, Neville Goddard would have probably been like the reincarnation of George Michael today. I'm kidding, but I mean, like, basically, when and by the way, take this word and take it with you with any biblical like verse, because remember, that's a guidebook for this world, right? The mental world, and replace it with the word artisan or creator or, like I said, practitioner. Okay, belief is not, I've got to muster up, like we've talked about before, enough. Like, I've got to stack up enough belief in this, right? Or I've got to stack up enough faith. Okay, what does an artisan do? What does an artist do? Because that's really what it is. Or what does a practitioner do? Anything. So a practitioner just means somebody who practices something. Like, if you're practicing a guitar, what do? Day one, you're gonna suck, right? And what does an artist do? Day one, if they don't know anything about drawing, they're gonna absolutely have a piece of crappy art on a very expensive piece of canvas that they know they have no idea how to use it correctly, right? But the more that they do that, the more that they participate, the more that they go out and learn new skills in that area, right? The more that they become the artist, the more that they become the practitioner, the more that they become the creator. Now, we know that that we are these things, okay? We already are these things. Now, but the problem is that we live in a world, for example, if you're like, and you may have run into this, okay? So maybe within yourself or within conversations from other people, because we're so education oriented, and this is what I talked about in the beginning of this video today, right? We're like, oh, that person, because they can regurgitate knowledge, I'm going to give them a PhD, I'm going to give them a master's. That's just because you know something doesn't mean you know how to use that something, right? And the problem is, like, the American educational system, which I'm not a fan of, and I have like some sort of like TEDx talk out there on YouTube about it. Like, it's basically just become something to silence children, right? And that's my view on it. And so what we've done with it, though, is we've got our programming wrong, and we've taught ourselves, oh, the more I read something. So somebody might come to me and be like, hey, I've read every single lecture and book on Neville. Great. You have no idea what you're doing, right? And I know that sounds stuck up to say that, but what I'm trying to make the point is that you can read everything. You could be like, I've read every book on Buddha, and I've read all of the ancient, like, all of the different sects of Buddhism and all this kind of stuff, right? And I don't mean SEX, I'm talking about the groups, right? The different groups of Buddhism. That doesn't mean you know anything about Buddhism. Just because you can read loads of information doesn't mean you're the same as the artisan, which is, again, so this is why, right? Belief and faith are almost the opposite of the educated person, right? Because belief and faith are all about the person who are taking in the information and practicing it, right? Hence why Neville talks about in his lecture, image making, right? That the law can be better understood as like playing a violin or a piano. The more that you play it, the better at it you get. So what does it mean to build faith? It doesn't mean to I've got to muster this up, or I've got to do these actions. And that's why I wanted to talk about today about the rite of passage. Like if you're a Christian, or if you're like in a religious like group, you're kind of taught and indoctrinated. Oh, you've got to go to mosque. Oh, you got to go to temple. Oh, you got to like, right? And so you're earning it, right? And I remember this interview, and I forgot, it might have been LeBron. I think it was Steph Curry. So he was actually interviewed, and they had said, oh, you know what, like, how do you stay so centered or focused? And he's like, oh, like, do you meditate? And he goes, nope. He goes, I do visualize though, right? And the whole point that he was making, and if you take it to the work of Neville, what he's really saying is, I imagine, because what does meditation do? It calms you down. So he just imagined that he's calmed down. So he imagines living in the end of his meditation, right? So a lot of people in these kind of circles and groups, like especially Neville and meditation and stuff, oh, I've got to meditate first and then go out here. I'm not against meditation. I meditate, right? I'm for it. And I understand the neuroscientific benefits and the psychological benefits and so on and so forth. I get it. But you don't need it, right? And this is what I'm saying. You don't need anything to manifest. The only thing that you need, if there was anything, is this belief. But what is belief? Belief is, and this is dual layer. Remember I had told you there's two parts to this that I want to tell you that are going to sound like they're against each other, right? So the first part is understanding it from the esoteric language, which is the amunya, which is what we're talking about right now. It's an artist who continues learning how to be and get better and better and better at the art, right? So what does that mean for you? Well, I'm going to give you examples after we do part 2, okay? Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much, by the way. Yeah, I'm actually connected to Wi-Fi, so I think we're gonna use that one again, X. Thank you, appreciate that. Yes, okay, so I just noticed your question, so I'm gonna come back to it as well. And so again, part 2 is that if you want an easier like understanding as well, what does the artist do? Why? Have you ever had an artist who absolutely hates like what they do? No. And you're gonna say, oh yeah, well, no, that's self-loathing, right? That's not the same as an artist who hates their work of art. That's self-loathing. What I'm trying to say is they enjoy the practice of art making. They enjoy, like, have you ever met like a really good like violinist? Oh, I hate the violin. I really do. It really frustrates me. Oh my God. No, they really enjoy the process. And that's really what this is about. So like that's actually now I'm going to say that there's actually 3 components to belief and faith. Okay. And this is that you enjoy the process. Why, like now think about this, because people are scared shitless sometimes when they first understand what's going on with manifestation, because they're like, oh my gosh, have I created all this crap? Yes, you have, but the very fact is that you can reverse it, right? And even Neville talks about that, right? But then they get locked into it. Now that's OCD, or that's fear, or that's trauma, that's PTSD. There's a load of other things that are going on in that person's life that are locking them into, oh shit, I'm powerless, when they just actually discovered that they're powerful, right? That's so there's loads more psychological issues that are going on, right? And the problem is then people literally read the law so literal that they think, oh, I shouldn't go get like therapy, or because the law says it's all about me and I should do it. There's nothing wrong with that. And yes, I know I'm pro therapy. I know I'm a psychologist. So of course I'm going to be biased. I get it. But at the same time, There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with actually turning one of your friends into a therapist. Right? So people always joke about that, right? Friend is the cheapest therapy. Like friendship is the cheapest therapy, right? And go do that, or find a mentor, manifest a mentor, right? Whatever it is, but make sure that you're dealing with that, right? Healing, like who doesn't want to heal? Like, right? Unless you're like a masochist. Well, then I totally understand that. And I do want to come back to your question. I'm just finishing the thought. So again, enjoy the process. Enjoy the process of learning how to manifest. And I love Neville's perspective on this. Like, what is the purpose of manifestation? Yes, it is on one level, and he actually talks about this, and so does Paul when he talks about his. So Paul, I think it's in 1 Corinthians 15, and he talks about his own spiritual journey, and he talks about the 3 levels of heaven. So Neville runs with that, and he talks about how when you manifest, this is actually very powerful. Now think about this, okay? This is he says that really the purpose of manifestation is to wake up that to the reality that you're God, right? So when you create and you create something, it doesn't matter how big or small it is. It's supposed to be a moment by moment waking, right? And by the way, if you could just like these and all this kind of stuff. I know I keep asking that's just because it gets out there to other people, okay? So Muppet, you can keep adding stuff. I noticed that you're erasing stuff. You could totally leave stuff there as long as it's clean and supportive and stuff. I'm all good that, right? And so again, yeah, actually that's a good phrase. Love the process, because you are the process. So if you don't love the process, you don't love yourself. Does that make sense? Now, remember, sorry, that's Poppy, by the way. If you don't love the process, then you don't love yourself. And I know that sounds extremely cheesy. I don't know. I'll get a Grammarly plug-in next time I talk. But loving the process means love yourself. But love in the esoteric sense is very violent, symbolically speaking, right? It literally, like the ancient Greek symbol for love was beheading yourself. That's the highest form of love. It's just a metaphor for self-sacrifice. Now in Neville's world, you take that and run with that. That means you're dying to old states all the time. You are in a state of perpetual dying, but you're also in a state of perpetual living. Let me say it another way. Life is about letting go and picking up, letting go and picking up, letting go and picking up, right? And Neville says do that morning, noon, and night, right? Now, for most people, they hear that and they're like, shit, that sounds like a lot of work. I'm going to Esther Hicks, or I'm going to Law of Attraction, or I'm going to... Now, I'm not knocking those. I'm just saying that people hear the mental gymnastics that need to happen and they don't want to participate, right? And yes, you can be manifesting throughout the whole process of doing this. Of course you can. We already are anyway, so you might as well be molding the life of your dreams. That's what I want for you. That's why I coach. That's why you can get in touch if you want coaching, right? But I actually heartfelt believe in your ability to actually use this. This is why I do. I actually enjoy doing this, right? But then there's this third part that I haven't brought up, and I've talked about some of this somewhat in my other videos. If you checked out the other videos, is that really replace the word belief or faith with feelings that are in the end, right? We talked about living in the end a little bit, and so they're feelings of knowing. So remember, feelings are never feelings. Feelings are conviction. Like, I know that I'm it, but you can use feelings to get there, right? And that's what Neville says when he says feeling is the secret, but feeling isn't the point. That's really what he says. Like, conviction is the point, all right? Are you with me? And so that's what he is drawing upon, and that's what he wants us to draw upon. Let me answer this question from X, and then we're going to come back into this. But remember, 3 things. Faith and belief are 3 things that are always at work with one another, in relationship to one another. Yes, you can neglect one and focus on 2. You can neglect like all 3. You can neglect one and focus on why I just said that, right? But you get what I'm saying. So let me answer this question. So what's the best way to practice being? Actually, so X, if you can allow me, I'm going to paint it 1, and then 2. Okay, sorry. That might be the heat, by the way. It's 96 degrees right now. But let me ask the pinned question. What's the best way to practice being? Okay. Let me answer your question going backwards, okay? Because a load of people ask me, well, how do you ignore? Like, I believe every single word, not word, but every single phrase from Neville's work can be turned into a technique. And I believe that he did that on purpose. Like, so people are like, because Neville says, oh, ignore the facts of the world, right? Or ignore those things that are not in line with your desired end, right? So how do you ignore? And there's actually a layers. Everything's layers to me. So there isn't one like technique, it's like multiple. But usually these multiple can be found in one technique. So let me answer your question next by answering this one for another person. So what does it mean to ignore? Well, if you're being who you want to be, whatever shit is coming your way, you're gonna naturally ignore, right? So if you're being rich and a bill comes tomorrow, like even Neville used this example, and or something similar, and a bill comes your way tomorrow, and it's like, oh, that bill is probably something that a rich person could afford, right? Have a sense of humor about it. But part of that is also the mentality of somebody who's rich. Oh, this will get taken care of, right? And so you ignore the old stress, you ignore the old tension, you ignore the old limiting beliefs, right? You don't, because, but that's the process. That's the process. So you were saying, you know, how do you be? Well, let's come back to belief. What is belief? Belief is being an artisan. Like, and I love that because it's not even a modern word. It's the word they chose in the ancient Egyptian like lexicon, right? And so how do you practice being? Well, this is what I tell my coach, like clients. How do you practice it? You give yourself things to do every day. And I'm a big believer in action as well. So you're gonna find coaches who are not, because you're doing actions every day anyway. So why not choose ones that are in line with your future self anyhow, right? Now, Neville says that you're not gonna be able to do anything. What he's saying is don't be trying to effort stuff out of thin air, right? He isn't saying don't do actions. He's saying that don't try to use not just action, but thoughts and beliefs and emotions to try to force a situation, to try to force someone else, to try to force conversations, to try to make up stuff, right? That's what he's saying. Of course you're gonna take action. Everybody takes action. But the question is, where are you taking action from? Are you taking it from so like, for example, if you wanna be a teacher, right, online or whatever, how are you feeling when you're jumping on? Are you in the state of being the person who has a successful teaching business? Or are you in the state of the mental state of, and the mental beliefs and emotions of a person who is, I'm not a teacher yet. This is why, again, I'm talking about rites of passage. You are it now. You're not it then, someday when, right? After you get your credentials or anything like that, you're it now. So how can you start now? Yes, there might be rules here that you have to adhere to, right? But even so, you can manifest even the non-adherence of those rules, right? Meaning not following those rules, because you could manifest someone giving you a job without the credentials or whatever it is, right? Or that they'll pay for your credentials while you're on the job. It doesn't matter what it is. Something will happen that will get you to where you need to go, right? And so being is the practice, because remember, it means practitioner. It is the practice of being that person, but, and I love this word persevere, because again, this is back to the biblical lexicon, the biblical language, okay? And that word means continuous, but even more, it means everywhere. So then you're like, wait a minute, what does that mean? Like the word persevere, because that's where Neville gets the word, right? Persist from. So he gets the idea of persistence from the scriptural word, from the biblical word, persevere. But the word persevere means everywhere or continuous. Now this is beautiful. And one day I'm gonna give you a whole crap load of examples of how this plays out. But everywhere means you're taking that person everywhere you go. So how do you practice being? So this is actually a great question, X, by the way, because what this is really talking about is, let's say you're wealthy, but then you're wealthy going and visiting with your friends, like meaning you're in the state of being wealthy. You have the solid beliefs backed by your emotions, backed by your thoughts of somebody who is wealthy, right? Well, guess what? You don't just go be wealthy when you're taking money out of the bank or when you go pay a bill or when you have anything money related. You take that wealth with you everywhere you go, into every relationship that you, whether they be strangers, whether you're walking on the street. Well, now You're the person who's walking down the street who's wealthy. If you got a, I don't know, you're hanging out with your mom because everything's going cool, whatever, you guys are hanging out, making cool memories. And then now you're hanging out with your mom as the wealthy person, right? And so that's what it is. So again, if you're trying to manifest confidence, well, then you're confident in everywhere. That's what the word persist means. You're bringing this new person with you everywhere you go. Now, yes, of course, create the scenes in here first, but also there's an action component, right? There is a physical action-based component in this world. That means you literally go and be that person right after the scene that you create, right? Now, Neville says, listen, you're gonna gaslight yourself. This is gonna feel fake. It's not gonna feel real. That's why he says persist, right? That's why he says bring it with you everywhere you go. Why? Because if you're only focusing on it within one area, you're only going to look at yourself through the lens of being that person in that one area. And then what else if something else happens in a different area of your life? No, well, then you're still the wealthy person. You're still the confident person. You're still the person with your favorite person, like right with your SP, right? And so that is what it means to be being. It is practicing. And when you practice, this goes back to the word faith. Then you are actually using faith. You are using belief. But remember, faith is three